What's up, listeners? This is Netflix and Kill. I'm your host, Harley, and we have the co-host, the old fart, the old geezer, the wrinkled forehead. I'm trying to. What are some other?
I don't know, man. If I actually looked that old, I would understand. But man, funny enough, I look about like 5 to 10 years younger than I really am. People don't even think I'm 21 half the time, and I'm like, yeah, way older.
You still get ID'd and stuff, or I guess you probably.
I do actually, unless I don't shave. Then if I don't shave, I don't get ID'd. But man, if I shave, fuck, all the time.
All right, yeah. So we got Dustin here, the host of the Heavy Metal History podcast.
Yeah, killing it right now on the Heavy Metal History podcast. Also starting Twitter feuds with people in pants.
Yeah, so I've listened to a few new episodes you put out. So it's the guy from episode 50, Evangel.
Yeah,
that was awesome. And that one the ex-Christian dude, Blood, Sweat, and Beers or whatever.
Yeah. That was a good conversation too. That was almost going to be our episode 50 until that Matron Thorn one just kind of like fell in my lap, and I was like, "Oh, nope, got to switch it up now." So,
yeah, and then I think you retweeted the Scott Ian thing, his new graphic novel, which I still need to read. But did you see that?
Oh, I don't. That's Scott from Carnifex.
Yeah,
not Scott Ian from Anthrax.
Oh wait, is his full name Scott? Is it Scott Ian Lewis, right? Or
yeah.
Okay, my bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not out yet. It should be out soon, as far as I know.
Okay.
But he's just kind of getting people pumped for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just retweeted it and just put a heart emoji thing on it because I'm like,
Yeah.
I love that dude's lyrics. What's their last album? The Slow Death, or what was it? Yeah, so
yeah, Slow Death.
Yeah, I got to see that. Then the one festival was Slaughterfest, I think, that I watched them when they were touring for that album, that Enterprise Earth and Cannibal Corpse. It was a pretty heavy lineup that year. I think it was 2016 whenever that album dropped. So anyways, this is Netflix and Kill. Just want to always promote this guy. This I'm trying to think what's another term for an old fart.
Geriatric.
Old fart synonyms.
I'm not a millennial, but I'm also not a Gen Xer. I'm in like that weird middle ground.
A square.
Definitely not a millennial. Yeah, I don't know. I'm more of an 80s guy, but I don't know what they were called. They weren't baby boomers.
I was trying to look up. All I see is a fuddy-duddy. What?
Fuddy-duddy. Jesus.
All right, I'm going to shut up. All right, yeah, so Dustin here decided to pick the highly acclaimed 90s teen popular Roger Ebert approved drama Brainscan. So this film Brainscan came out in 1994, and I'll let you introduce it, or if you want to give a quick synopsis, and I want to go into the kind of the history of it, and then we'll go more in depth and everything. But yeah, so
So the basic premise of this movie is that a kid, he's into horror movies and also video games, and he sees this ad in Fangoria magazine for this game called Brainscan. He calls in about it. They send it to him, and then it takes him into this whole world of like, what's reality and what's not reality, what's the video game, what's not the video game, and he murders people. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the premise right there.
All right, cool.
I think it was a bit ahead of its time in terms of like, what it's about, because you think about how many movies like kind of try to do that same thing. And this is in 1994 now,
Yeah. Well, before we get into it, I want to get the history of this film with each of us here, because I'll start off with myself. I came across this film because of you decided to pick it. Never heard of it. I looked at the cover of it, and I was a bit worried that this was going to be one of those films that people like to call quote unquote trash cinema. Okay,
Yeah.
so that I don't think that was the case. A lot of people consider probably call this trash cinema. I actually don't really like that term, but I'll go more into that later. But anyway, so this was my introduction to Brainscan that became into my consciousness. I never knew of this. So in terms for you, how did you come about in finding this this John Flynn flick Brainscan?
So I know at one point when we were younger, we had cable TV, and it was kind of like a big deal for us. And we couldn't watch any of the movie channels if my dad was around because of like violent stuff on them or whatever. So we always had to watch like Nickelodeon and shit. But if it was late at night and my dad wasn't around, like we'd watch the movie channels anyways. And I believe this was on one night, and I had always loved horror movies even when I was younger. So I was just like, well, of course I'm watching this, you know? And, you know, the movie's kind of unassuming at first. You don't really think it's going to be anything until, you know, the first little kind of murder scene happens. So I was pretty young. I think it was on like Cinemax, if I'm not mistaken. It was like one of those like regular rotation Cinemax movies from back in the 90s. I think it was like always this, Darkman, Freaked, and who knows what else? Last Boy Scout, probably. Or no, that would be on HBO. But yeah, it was just on a movie channel late at one night, and I just like got sucked into it. And I was like, this is the coolest fucking movie I've ever seen. Because, you know, video games were kind of getting like more popular around that time too. So especially like think of like virtual reality now versus what this movie is kind of about. And I think from then on, like I would kind of just ask, like when I got older, I would ask my friends who were into horror movies if they'd ever seen this movie, and they're like, no, what is that? It sounds dumb. And I'm like, you're right. Based on the name, it sounds pretty dumb. So like I would always show my friends this movie, and they were like, dude, thank you so much for showing me this movie. Yeah, that's I don't know how old I was. I was pretty young though. Probably like, I don't know, 8 or 9, maybe 10, somewhere around there.
A perfect age to watch this type of this this film. Now, how many times do you think you've seen it?
Ooh,
Or
probably a lot, dude. That's the thing with like movies, especially ones that I really like. I probably watch them like 2 or 3 times a year, just because, you know, and or like I'll put them on in the background while I'm doing something else, so they'll just like play on a loop. If I had to guess, I'd say it's got to be over 100 easily, if not more.
Nice. And how many people have you kind of introduced this masterpiece, if you will?
Maybe like 10 or 15. It's not a whole lot, you know, it's like a small group of people, but I know one for sure, my buddy Chris. I introduced it to him years ago, and he just like, he would not stop talking about it. He was like, dude, this movie's so cool. Like, I can't believe I never knew about this. And he's not really a horror guy either, so that's kind of the funnier thing. But anytime me and him would hang out and he would come over, we'd just watch it, like put it on, like kind of dissect certain things about the movie. Even though, you know, it's not like super deep or anything, but there's still some interesting little like things to kind of go into with the movie.
Death. Part 2.
Yeah. Oh my God.
All right, cool. That's now. Was this like one of the first films you started? Like for me, I know, and this may be kind of corny to like, you know, big horror fans, but like I know Pan's Labyrinth was the film for me that was like I would want to show. I remember getting my brother to watch it, and then I had like relatives that like, you have to watch this. So, like, was this one of those first films that you went out of your way to show, or were you already doing this with many other films where it's like just going out of your way to, whether it's relatives or friends and stuff, that you're like, gotta check this out? Or
It wasn't the first film. I had always been kind of the person that's been like, hey, you need to check this kind of thing out. But it's a conversation about like wanting to see a movie they'd never seen before would get brought up. I'd be like, yo, I got just the movie for you, because it is kind of an obscure movie, you know, unless you're like a huge, like, you know, Frank Langella fan or fucking what's his name from Terminator.
Furlong.
Furlong, yeah. So it really, a lot of people don't know about this movie, so it's just kind of like, I got the movie for you, man. Like, check this one out. But I also preface too, if like they're not into horror, then don't worry about it. But usually I know if they're into horror or not, so that's why I recommend it.
All right. Yeah. So let's get into the meat and bones, or the gears and whistles, or the. I'm just trying to just just trying to shoot the shit here. My bad. Okay. So cast and crew wise, at least for crew, this was directed by John Flynn. Now, for those who are the uninitiated or don't have a grasp of this brilliant, talented masterpiece creating director, he directed the martial art master Steven Seagal, the Kung Fu King. I don't even know what Steven Seagal kind of promotes. Do you know his martial arts at all? Is he Krav Maga, or
Yeah.
what does he do?
No, he does Aikido.
Yeah, you know, the 99% working in MMA events Aikido.
Yeah.
So yeah, he directed Out for Justice and Rolling Thunder. Those are two of his most famous films besides Brainscan. He's also done a film with Dennis Hopper called Nails. Angelina Jolie's father, Christopher Walken. He directed a film with that dude, Scam. So, yeah, I would say he's very popular. I think he's a household name here. So, I'm just being stupid here. No, so yeah, I mean, John Flynn. Like, have you seen his filmography? Like, have you seen Rolling Thunder, Out for Justice?
I've seen Out for Justice. I've not seen Rolling Thunder. I'm not the biggest Steven Seagal fan personally, but I've seen some of his films. So yeah.
I think his aesthetic is awesome. Those yellow glasses, like I think it just
Yeah.
it's Americana, bro. That's. No. So yeah, Out for Justice, was that a good film at all, or what was that like?
It's been so long since I've seen it. I don't even remember what it's about. So I couldn't tell you.
I think it's.
I know it's one of his earlier films, though, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, that's his 10th feature. His Out for Justice. So no, I wouldn't say it's his earliest, but he had a few films, and also and so I was gonna go into it later, but T. Ryder Smith, the person that played the trickster, he has this blog on his website, a blog or essay on his experience with Brainscan, and he kind of put down, like, I didn't know that John Flynn, he was actually an assistant during The Great Escape and some other films, and some other classic films. So the guy, he's actually talented. I was kind of joking around a bit there, but
I'm glad that I'm glad that you looked at T. Ryder's website, because I totally looked at it myself too, and I forgot to mention it to you to like check it out. Because also I was like, oh man, you can email him and like get a hold of him, maybe ask questions. But like I totally forgot because I got wrapped up in other shit. But I'm so glad that you read that and found that out, because I was looking around on there myself too, because I was like, dude, this guy like steals the show for me, this character. And I was kind of curious of what he was up to since then, because I've never seen him in anything else, or so I thought. And then I realized I had seen him in other stuff. He just looks different.
Yeah. So it's a fantastic read. I recommend anyone to check it out. If you're a fan of Brainscan, if you extremely hated the film, I'd still say to check out the blog. Or if you're just a fan of like FX, because he goes into detail on how that process was like, auditioning and everything. So just and I definitely want to contact him later. Again, just kind of my situation. Maybe in a few months from now, like him. I heard a podcast with Josh Barnett, this MMA fighter.
Yep.
So yeah, he did this recording with this other person. It's like this funny jiu-jitsu persona, and they were doing a thing on movies, and it was just awesome. Like I didn't even know Barnett was a cinephile, so he's into the weird, and that's someone I would love if I had the opportunity. But yeah, this guy, the T. Ryder Smith dude, I would love to have him on, because he definitely was like a standout in this flick. But
yeah,
any case, so yeah, John Flynn, you mentioned you've seen Rolling Thunder, and I mean, he has a film with Stallone too. I mean, the guy was able to work with some fantastic actors. So
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so that's that, and I mean, yeah, crew wise, writers. One of the writers, I think it was Andrew Walker, wrote Seven. So, like, I don't know. That's if that's of interest to anyone, that's cool
I mean,
too.
that's a pretty big credit. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, Seven's like pretty well known movie.
Yeah, and honestly, I really don't want to get into the crew stuff. But besides for you, if was there anything, because the FX, we can go kind of go into it. But I mean, was there anything you want to kind of go into before getting into the meat of the film?
As far as like crew goes,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we could probably talk about it once we're actually talking about
well,
the
I mean,
film.
yeah, I definitely think the writers were onto something here with like what they were writing, and it was a little bit ahead of its time. But I mean, if you look at the other stuff that he's written, he wrote Seven, 8 mm, Sleepy Hollow. Like he's written some pretty solid films, um, and I like the dude's kind of story structure that he uses for a lot of his stuff. But I mean the effects are good, so the crew did a good job on that, and some of them are a little cheesy, but I mean cast is great. I think the cast is probably the best part about the movie.
Yeah, so let's get into the film here. Like,
Well, I think the main thing to discuss with this movie is kind of the more like psychological thriller aspects of the movie, because it is, especially with that ending, and that's something we definitely need to talk about, is that weird after credits ending. But the whole time you're watching the movie, you don't know if what he's doing is really happening, or if he's imagining it, or if it's part of the video game. It's all pretty like, as far as the movie is concerned, it's he's the one killing people. But the trickster is saying like, actually, you just have to play the game and everything will be fine. Just play the game, play the game. But the more he plays the game, the more bad shit happens. And he's like, I can't fucking play this game. Like, what do I do? Like, it's really happening. It's not fake. And he's like, no, it's fine. Just play the game. And then, all my favorite sequences in the movie are the ones involving Trickster, whether they're comedy based or, him explaining things through exposition. Like, that dude kills it. Like, he is one of the best characters, and I don't know. I don't even know if he's a villain technically. He's like this weird anomaly in the movie. But I think the psychological thriller aspect is the meat and bones of this movie. Like, yeah, it's a little bit of a slasher film, but the fact that it involved video games, especially a game that was like VR before there was VR, if you look at it that way, in 1994, that's way ahead of its time. Like, nowadays, you have movies like Gamer and Ready Player One and stuff like that, where you get put into the video game and you're essentially like living in the game. And I'm sure there's more that I'm missing, but I think this was probably one of the first ones, if you really think about it.
yeah, I mean, when it comes to the recommendations later, I have a few, but yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think it's definitely ahead of its time. This is just kind of my personal thing too. I loved it just because it's just that '90s aesthetic.
Yeah.
It transported me to that time. My childhood was more late '90s, or at least like what I can remember more is late '90s, early 2000s. So this is kind of before me, but it was, I thought it was fine. It was corny where it needed to be corny. Like, the music choices I thought were awesome for what it was. They had the Primus and White Zombie. So,
Dude, that Primus scene kills me every time.
yeah,
Because I'm like, out of all the bands, he picks fucking Primus. And I was like, you know what? That actually makes sense for this character. It's like, how does he know to like Primus,
yeah, and it's
And what's another thing, too, is kind of funny? Literally every character, at least like as far as the kids are concerned, has an Aerosmith poster in their room or somewhere around them. Like, all of them, Aerosmith. And I'm just like, does everybody really like Aerosmith that much in 1994? Because I don't think that's true.
yeah, that was a weird choice. I did there's like the trivia thing. I guess Edward Furlong was in one of their music videos, so I guess that was I guess there's
A
some
little joke.
some cross promotional or joke type of thing. Again, I didn't really look into deep into the Aerosmith. Maybe there's Illuminati with the cows and stuff. I don't know. We can go super deep dive into that world if you're one to go into that. But
Yeah, I think the aesthetic of it doesn't really hurt it, and I still think it ages pretty well too, like considering it's over like 20 something years old now. And it does feel 90s because of how people dress and like the bands on the wall and everything like that. But there's some gems from the 90s, man. I think, just like with heavy metal, horror movies went through like this weird rut in the 90s where like people think that it died out, but it really didn't. There's some solid stuff here. And I'm not saying this is like top of the line, like the greatest like horror movie in the 90s, but it's pretty good for what it is, man. I think it's an underrated gem. And don't get me wrong, there are, like you were saying, there's some fucking cheesy ass parts in the movie, but I think they serve a purpose too. It's not like overtly cheesy for the sake of it. It's just kind of like it was the 90s and they did the best they could trying to make it like a little serious, but it came off, a little cheesy too. Especially some of those effects, like that scene where he takes his finger and he sticks it into the light socket and you see those cheesy ass lightning bolts go all over him.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, that didn't age well.
For me, I definitely like a year ago, I would have probably like, dude, this is stupid. It looks so fake, but it's one of the things where I kind of grew, took my head out of my own buttocks and just, just kind of appreciate for what it was. Again, who knows the studio meddling, because I read the T. Ryder Smith blog was like John Flynn actually didn't want to use a lot of effects, but again, he wasn't able to really do that. There's obviously effects in this film, so again, it's just to where, and also with the 90s technology at the time and stuff, it's to where like I'm just more appreciative. Again, it's like, are you able to if you were put in that dude's shoes, are you able to do something better than that? I don't know. For me, I try not to be as hateful as I was, and I think this is a good test for those who nut hug like 80s like Hellraisers and stuff, but then when they come to like 90s and older films, they'll just like completely trash a film just because of some FX choices and things like that. So again,
no, I agree. And I think too, then like you were kind of mentioning a little bit, the 90s were in a weird spot for effects. They weren't quite up to where they were for the new millennium, but they also were barely out of the 80s effects. So it's like a weird gray area of them trying to figure stuff out by just experimenting, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I think one of the better effects though actually was when he came out of the TV.
Oh, that dude, was right?
That was a good one. I was like, damn, man, that is creepy as shit every time. Just like that face bugging out of the TV, and then bam, there he is. And then when you finally see him, you're like, oh fuck, that dude is freaky looking, man. I love his haircut though. I aspire to have that haircut.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, there's like it's and again the choices, everything. I'm just like, this is so 90s. I love it. It's so corny, but it worked. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm sorry for bringing it down with some like serious like.
No, dude. That's part of a podcast. We got to talk about all aspects of it, and I agree with your sentiment there. Like me personally, like I don't judge on that stuff either, but I just kind of know, like looking at it, it's like, oh man, that's like, it's not the greatest effect, but it's like a little cheesy now. But I'm sure for then it was like, well, shit, this is all we got. It's the best we can do. So like, it's fine.
Yeah. It's just, the whole 80s revival type of, or like a lot of podcasts, man, it's just like people not hugging the 80s, which is, I understand it's like their childhood or their teenage years,
yeah.
But it's like they go out of their way to like shit on like the 90s and stuff. And this is like the childhood of like, I wouldn't say this one necessarily is childhood of mine, but, older 90s and early 2000s are just like easy targets for these people who like kind of push that agenda of like the 80s was the best, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, come on, man. Like, I don't know. It's just kind of irritating, but whatever. It's art. So anyways,
yeah.
It's good. This is a fun film. Honestly, I was like smiling most of the time. This was like a film I was like, dude, I would give this a 5 just because I was insanely like just funny. It made me feel, but Yeah, before we get into the rating, but yeah, so and dude, the video games and the teacher, like, what did you think of how they portrayed that teacher, the asshole teacher, and like, how was your, yeah, yeah.
You know, it's interesting because this was before like Columbine
Mm-hmm.
and school violence was a big thing. So I was kind of like, wow, were schools really demonizing stuff this bad? And it's not that like the club wasn't packed, because if you look at how many people were in that classroom watching that movie, it's like there's at least like 15, 20 kids in there.
Yeah.
Why would you shut down a club that's like, they're just trying to enjoy something they enjoy together? And um, yeah, the principal was very like, yeah, I don't know the word, but he was kind of a dick.
Yeah.
He was a very, and okay, so actually here's one of the good things about it is like there was that scene where he called him into the office and he's like, help me understand it, please. I felt like he was genuinely trying to understand why they like this stuff, but because of his own prejudices, he didn't fucking care. He just
Yeah.
wanted some kind of an explanation. And I thought that scene was actually really good because here's this kid that's trying to explain why he likes this stuff and why all these other kids like it. Is like it's an escape from life. We can fucking see people disemboweled and guts and blood. And he's like, and then he goes into like, oh, you mean like lighting up a marijuana
Right,
cigarette and
marijuana.
escaping the real world and then going to commit rape? And I was like, what the fuck, like. How did you go from like watching horror movies to smoking marijuana to going to rape? Like you just like fucking turn that dial up to 11, buddy. So the scene started off well, and then it just like went off the rails. And I was like, well, he's kind of an older guy, so that makes sense. He grew up with like the stigma against marijuana, and it's a fucking devil's drug. You're gonna commit murder and rape and kill. And I was like, damn, man. So like this guy's just too old to understand, even though he tried to and he genuinely wants to. It was a good moment, but then it got derailed. But good character overall, and I think too. Excuse me, near the end of the movie when he's kind of like on the last disc, so to speak, playing the game. He's running around the neighborhood. And he runs into the principal, and the principal gets killed, and he's just like, whatever. You were a dick to me. He didn't even he didn't even give a shit the principal got killed. So, the principal met his end, so he thought.
Yeah, I mean, like your personal experience, is that how, like, I know for me growing up, because more like high school for me was like, 2000s, like mid to late 2000s, and it was toward, I felt like definitely like teachers and stuff. There's definitely like that thing that they they definitely look down on those people who were like into the violent video games or that type of culture. I mean, what was that like for you
Um,
when you're in high school? Is that not really a
Honestly, like, I grew up in the South, so it was a little bit different, a little bit harsher for sure, because you have religious prejudice against like somebody like me. But honestly, it wasn't too bad. I can only ever remember two moments, maybe three in high school, and they all actually revolved around me listening to heavy metal, not necessarily like
yeah?
my love of horror movies. But I remember once, man, this big fucking shit kicking redneck um, saw me like listening to Slipknot, and he just literally like he all day throughout school he would see me and just punch me. He's like, "Stop listening to that music, you fag." I was just like, dude, like, leave me alone. Like, why the fuck do you care? Like, it's not your music. It was the strangest thing. And it was just like one day of him relentlessly just fucking hitting me every time he saw me, and then like telling his friends, like, he listens to like this stupid music and like Satan worshiping music. I was like, all right, whatever. Fucking leave me alone.
Yeah, it's just I just feel like I thought they did a good job just showing the bullying from, or the bully aspect was done by the
Yeah.
older people. Because again, you get a lot of things like, well, the kids the same age are always bullying, but it's like, what about the bullying from adults, and like you mentioned, that prejudice aspect, and it's just one of those things. Again, it's that hypocrisy thing. I thought they did a good job, because it's like he's trying to think, he's looking down on like violent video games, and you mentioned that marijuana cigarette thing.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. Like if you look deep into that, like that was all the legality, all those laws were all done from racism. Like, you hear how it was because they try to blame it on like Mexicans or the opium
Yeah.
type of thing with Asians and stuff. It's just like, and these guys are pushing this, inadvertently pushing these racist laws to this day. It's just, again, I just laugh at just the hypocrisy, the absurdity of it all. And again, I thought it was cool that they were able to kind of show that bully aspect from the teacher, but also on the law enforcement, because, and again, as you go into the film, you realize, or I guess the end of it, it was just all the video game, which was like, dude, that was intense. I mean, is that how you perceived it? Did you? Because for me, I felt like that's what it, like, felt like everything was just the video game, right? Or did you take something else away from that?
Yeah, no, I thought that everything. I mean, there was that weird ambiguous point where, especially after the first murder, and Trickster comes out and he's like, "Don't you get it? Like, it's you doing it. I'm just another aspect of you." So it's kind of like the Dexter thing, where he has like that secret little monster that lives inside his head that tells him to kill.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to think, Furlong's character is like this outsider kind of loner. Doesn't have his mom died, his dad's never around, so he's just alone all the time. And so after that first murder, you're like, oh shit, like, did he really kill those people? And more murders keep happening, and then he kills his best friend, and it's like, well, shit, like, how real is this? Is he really just murdering people and like blaming it on the video game, and the video game's actually nothing? So it was really interesting, like, trying to figure out the ambiguity of it, and then like, jumping a little bit to the end after he finishes the disc, everything's back to normal.
Right, he wakes up.
He wakes up. Yeah, he's at the park. And dude, there's no. This is the other thing about movies in that day. No fucking party like that happens, especially for fucking high school kids, man. But then again, they all seem like they're all like these rich people.
Yeah, I would say the upper class for
so
sure.
maybe they just get away with it and it's no big deal.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, he wakes up, everything's fine, and then he plays a little trick, so to speak, on the principal, and he's like, hey, I want you to check out this video game that I want to show to the horror club. And he's like, oh, I'll check it out, all right. And then it's like, fuck, like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah, that was pretty dark, I would say. But I gotta understand, like, dude, fuck this teacher. Because you hear, like, it was very quick. The friend mentioned how someone like died playing the game or whatever. Like, I don't know if he said they had like a heart attack or they actually, I don't know what happened, but
yeah, he said heart attack, and that leads you to believe that he actually didn't finish the game correctly. Like, he gave up. So that's something I wish they kind of delved into a little bit more, is like the consequences of not finishing the game. But I guess they kind of did with that offhanded remark, but it was still like, ooh, like, did they just die? And then what happens, if you think about like the real world versus the game world, like, is it like a Matrix thing where you die in the game, you die in real life?
Oh, yeah. Like, if he wasn't, yeah. Well, I thought he did well, the last task was what, to kill the girlfriend or Stacy, or what was the last task for?
I don't know. That was like where it started to get a little off the rails, man, because so like the end of it, like, he has to go kill Stacy, but you see him and he's standing there and he's normal, and then Trickster shows up and he's like, nah, fuck this, I don't want to do it. And then they kind of like fuse together, sort of, and then like Furlong has like kind of like this half Trickster makeup look and like half himself kind of look, and he's standing over her, and then like she kisses him, and then everything's fine. So it's like,
doesn't he get shot though?
Oh yeah, you're right.
He gets shot.
Yeah, he gets shot.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, since like a few weeks ago, but
yeah, I watched it a week ago. So,
but in any case, yeah, it was just the thing where it's like, yeah, did he complete it or he didn't? And then what was I gonna?
I felt like he did.
Yeah. So the what I wanted to get at too, because I thought it was cool, because the whole thing was like, wait, is this the writers kind of like, originally I thought they were gonna like look down on people who did play video games just because it seemed like that, but then I feel like their kind of point of the film was like, yeah, this is just a video game. It's definitely could seem realistic. And I think the other thing too is like, with violent video games, it's not necessarily bad, but it can affect people, badly. And I think they did a good part mentioning like someone had a heart attack because obviously when you hear Columbine and stuff like that, and again this was before that time, it's like
Yeah.
but the other thing, I mean, people shouldn't blame the video games. It's obviously people can play it and not it's like listening to heavy metal music and stuff. It's just it's all on the person rather than the art. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, the demonization was like, it was there, but it wasn't like super overbearing, because things weren't as bad yet. Like, sure, there was like violence in schools, I'm sure, and heavy metal definitely gets blamed for a lot of shit, and video games were just starting to get big to where they were getting blamed for shit. And it's just like, I mean, people just need to take responsibility for themselves and their actions and not blame it on everything else,
Yeah, well, that's what I was. You mentioned the demonization. That's what I was thinking. I thought the writer was like, this was like a type of propaganda film that was like, kind of point out, these games are bad. We need to make these laws and stuff. And it wasn't. It was more so like, no, it's just, it was just these things are freaking intense.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I don't want to get too heavy-handed here, but dude, sequences wise, I love the trickster sequences, man.
Oh, dude, he's so good.
And I honestly loved the drama portions too. When like, all right, so after when he thinks he murdered his friend Kyle, dude, I was like, damn, man. Like, it kind of goes down to like this bummer kind of set of scenes and stuff, because he's definitely like,
he's depressed.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, that would suck. Just like, and obviously he doesn't have that many friends, and then like, it gets to like where. Stacy goes and he thinks she's like actually just trying to be nice, but she has like a different motive. She talked to him just so she can write something in the newspaper or whatever about that, and that was kind of fucked up too.
Yeah, the whole stuff between him and Stacy was really fucking creepy, dude. Because he was like filming her all the time. And here's the other thing too, is like, I think she knew and just didn't give a shit, because there's that one scene where like she kind of looks out at the window and she just kind of smirks a little bit, and it's just like, the fuck, does she know? Like, she has to know. I mean, how are you not going to see a camera sticking out a window that's maybe 100, 200 feet across from you? So she obviously knows. But I don't think she cares that much, but it's still fucking creepy. Like, you don't film an underage girl taking off her clothes every night.
Yeah, and we have to get into Edward Furlong's kind of crazy thing, because there's a crazy thing with his real life, him getting on with his like 26-year-old tutor. But in real life, I should say. But yeah, in this film, that's like the starting of it, right? It's him filming the chick. I'm like, dude, why does like, am I gonna have to? Because all right, I don't mind films with like shitty characters who do like crappy motives like that. But some people, like, once they see that, like, oh no, I can't watch this film just because it's that creepy aspect of him filming the chick. But I thought it was kind of cool that they did it to where she was kind of cool with it, because I feel like. Yeah, they made it aware that she was aware that she was being filmed, and it makes that idea like it's like a complex female character. Again, obviously, I knew chicks that were I guess you would say freaky like that, or like down that's So I don't know, just that whole idea like all girls are wholesome or whatever. They kind of threw that out the window right away in this film, and I think that's kind of cool in that sense. And I don't feel like it was very exploitative. I think you do see some like nipples and stuff, but I don't know, it wasn't like,
I think she was older than she looked or was supposed to be in the movie, because near the end you see her get like a little bit naked.
So again, I mean, if whoever's listening, if you haven't seen the film and that's something you're very against, I guess maybe don't watch it. But I don't know, I don't feel like it was very exploitational, and
it wasn't too bad, but it was still creepy.
No, it definitely is creepy, but at the same time,
and
go on.
Sorry, they definitely made it to where like she had a crush on him too, so it was like a mutual thing. It's just like he was too afraid to say something and she was too afraid to say something, so it was just kind of like that nebulous, like, hey, we like each other, but we're not gonna say anything until it gets weird, or we're in that moment where it's like, hey, I like you, which in this case was like kind of the end, but not the end of the movie, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So, so yeah, sequences wise, yeah. I mean, was there what were some kind of yeah, any other cool sequences? Anything particular that you want
I
to?
think that first kill scene, man,
Oh,
brutal,
nice, nice. Yeah.
fucking brutal scene. I mean, like he's just stabbing the fuck out of him in the back, and there's just blood everywhere, and you think he's done. So he goes to cut off the foot, and the motherfucker wakes back up, and he's not dead yet, and he's still sprawling around the room, and he hits him again. And it's just like, god damn, man, that felt like what a real murder would probably be. Like, they're not gonna go down easy. They're not just gonna sit there and get stabbed or killed. They're gonna flail and scream and bleed, and it was pretty intense. To this day, I still think it's probably like a pretty intense scene.
Yeah, definitely an intense POV stabbing sequence. Yeah, I dug that. I dug the what was it? Dude, you know what? I also thought it was creepy when he does find out he's get. I think you maybe already mentioned this when he because he records himself before he starts brain scan. Just and so he watched and what and they have the frame of the what's being recorded on the video camera, and you see him get up after the game starts, like, oh no. So it's like, because the trick, I think, was it the trickster tells him like he's the one that's actually committing these things or whatever, and he doesn't believe him, so he records himself. I was like, dude, just that realization, like you're unconsciously or you're doing these horrendous acts, like that would be such a intense kind of feelings, just like you're not able to control these urges or whatever. It's just like, whoa. But
Yeah, even he was like, no, I swear I was sitting there the whole time. And it's like, well, you weren't. You got proof right there, man. Which is funny too, because even before he recorded, he's like, I don't know what this is going to prove, but if it's something bad, consider this my confession. Then when he found out it was bad, he was like, well, fuck, I don't want to show anybody that. he like completely was like, nah, never mind, I did it. But
it's like, even in the cop standpoint or law enforcement standpoint, it's like, dude, like it's like, as much if it was like a supernatural situation like that, it's like, dude, we can't believe you what we see is you going up and murdering. It would be such a shitty way to go, to be locked up. But yeah, I thought his assistant, Detective Hayden's assistant, dude, he has like the bunch of like wooden planks fall on top of him. Dude, I was like, damn, bro, that was messed up. And then I thought what was cool was the choice of having just like one of the regular townspeople commit a murder when they're searching. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I remember I forgot about this point and I wanted to make it earlier. So before, when they're trying to hunt down the murderer, they're doing like a citizen police force or whatever, and they all have guns. Every single one of them. And the detective is like, do not fire your guns under any circumstances, period. And then what the fuck does everybody do after that? They go out and they start firing their goddamn guns. And then guess what? None of them get arrested for killing a fucking principal and, basically killing that other cop too. Like, if they wouldn't have shot, the stuff wouldn't have fallen on him anyways. But yeah, they all just disobeyed a direct order from a lieutenant, and nobody got in any trouble. And it was just like, why the fuck did they have guns in the first place? Like, they didn't need guns to go around finding a killer. But I was just like, man, that was the thing, is like, nothing happened. Like, nobody got in trouble. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, and who knows if all those guns were even legal. But I guess back then it didn't really matter as much. Not like today.
All right, yeah. I mean, any kind of closing thoughts and stuff?
No, I think overall this is a hidden gem of a movie. I mean, it's not the greatest movie ever, but it's got a lot of really cool shit in it, and I think the acting is really well done. Like, everybody in this movie does a really good job, especially Frank Langella, man. I mean, come on, the dude's a legend. There are times where like Furlong chews the scenery like a little too much, but I still think overall, like, he commits to his character 100%. I think his friend Kyle is like the perfect epitome of like a metal dude in the 90s. I was like, he's my man. And obviously, like, Trickster, he steals the show. And like every scene he's in, he is fucking awesome, man. Like his little cadences with his voice and just how he's like, he's essentially what his name is. He's like, he's a fucking trickster. He's like always talking in his ear, like, no, now you need to do this, and giving him like weird advice that isn't really actually good advice, but he's basically just trying to get him to finish the game, and for all intents and purposes, he does finish the game, but at what cost, So I think, like, kind of summing all that up, that's how I feel about the movie. I think if you've never seen it, you should give it a chance, check it out. But the main thing, and this, I mentioned this earlier, that fucking like after credits sort of ending, not really after the credits, but it shows a couple credits, and then you hear Trickster go, "Wait a minute." And then it shows the dog with the foot from the guy he was the first kill that we just talked about.
Yeah.
And I was like, but wait a minute, if he finished the game and everything went back to normal, why is the guy's foot back with the dog? So then I was thinking maybe it's because the principal played the game, but then why is he going to what's-his-face's Edward Furlong's house? Like it is very confusing of an ending there of like, did he commit the murders, or is the principal playing the game and now the murders are happening again? Like, what's going on here? That was kind of a weird thing I wish they didn't do. But maybe I'm just missing the point of the scene, and somebody else can explain it. But yeah, I don't know. It was interesting, that little scene.
Yeah, I didn't even see that. I just remember I just saw on IMDb that there's that end credit sequence, so that kind of messed. Yeah, I mean, again, it could be to where maybe it did all actually or a part of it actually happened or something, like, I don't know. This again, yeah. So maybe if anyone can get in contact with the writer or something, if they're super into it, but I don't know. I'm kind of glad that it was just a one and done type of deal though, too.
Totally.
So it's just because I think it would have lost its charm and also the unsettling aspect too. Again, just the fact that, again, if either way, if it did all happen or whatever, that's very unsettling. But the fact that it didn't happen, just to come across a video game that was immersive is insanely unsettling. Like, dude, just psychologically, I'd be like, whoa, like, I'm not gonna fuck with that. You hear people talking, DMT trips and stuff like that, like, and sometimes they'll it messes with them really badly. So same thing with video games, you could do that. Anyways, so yeah. Oh, I wanted to get trivia, dude. T. Ryder Smith, the guy who did Trickster, he did the voice of Igor. He wrote down the little blog thing. Oh, I was like, oh, the yes master.
Yeah, he actually does a lot of voiceover work in general. That's kind of mainly what he does now.
Yeah, so I thought that was cool because that was a big part of the thing. And we didn't even get into like the production design, dude. I kind of mentioned the aesthetic, but dude, his room was sick, bro. I was like, that is awesome.
I know, he had like free reign of the whole, like, technically he had the whole house, but like that attic, that was like a sick attic, man. He had like a fridge up there and just like this crazy entertainment center. That's what I'm saying. Like, he must be rich as fuck, like, despite everything bad that kind of happened in his life. He obviously lives in like a rich neighborhood and has like all this state of the art computer shit, especially for 1994. Like, yeah, he's rolling in it.
All right, yeah. So let's get into rating, man. What did you give this film? If you want to, again, I recommend it regardless. So if you just want to say, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not a perfect film, but I think it's got enough to warrant watching it. Like I said, it's underrated. It just got lost in the '90s, and I think I'd have to, like, out of 10 or something like that, I'd probably give like a 6 or a 7. I think it's solid. Like, I'll watch it all the way through. It captivates me. It's good. I like it.
Yeah, out of 10, I think maybe an 8. I actually give it a 4 out of 5. I actually read reviews. A lot of people, they actually diss on the acting. They diss on the plot. And
yeah, the plot's, it's not great.
Yeah.
But it's like a slasher movie. What plot is great in a slasher movie?
Let's get into. I wanted to get into Edward Furlong here, man. I mean,
yeah.
I honestly did not know his personal life I just knew him from American History X, which is actually one of my favorite movies. I know a
Yeah.
lot of it's kind of divisive, but I would love kind of the message on that film, even though the director doesn't really like, Tony Kaye doesn't really like the how that went down. But I mean, did you know Edward's kind of crazy life or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I know he's had a very troubled life with heroin and all kinds of drugs, and he's a child actor, and a lot of shit happened that, you know, yeah, he's had a rough life. So I'm aware of him kind of doing what he's done.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to mock him just because, again, I
No,
mean, to
no,
be
no,
put
not at
in
all.
that situation would be intense. But I mean, because this I just found out after watching Brainscan. Because I was like, man, you know what? I actually dug this kid's act, or I don't know, maybe just the dialogue or the script or whatever. But yeah, he dated his tutor that was in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, I think, and she was like
Yeah.
26 and he was 13, and I think he didn't grow up with like in a stable family hold or whatever, so it's like that kind of escalated to where then I guess he was like he was violent towards her too, so he was getting like arrested for was it domestic violence,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then the other crazy thing was he eventually had a kid, and I guess they found the child was tested positive for cocaine. Like the child's like 2 years old or I don't know what, but
Jesus.
it's like you hear that stuff. I'm like, and then for me, I'm like, oh, dude, this guy's a piece of shit. But again, in the context, I mean, again, his the early childhood fame and stuff, psychologically, man. But at the same time, it's like, man, you gotta know you shouldn't be putting a child next to cocaine. If then again, who knows? Maybe it was just like a bad drug testing, getting So again, who knows? It's just but him beating up women's pretty shitty. So anyway, I just had to point that out, man. I didn't.
Yeah, he was in a remake of one of my favorite like 80s horror movies. They did a remake of fucking uh Night of the Demons,
Oh, okay.
and him and man, what's that girl's name? She's super hot. Uh Not Jennifer Love. Maybe it
Shannon
was Jennifer Love
Elizabeth?
Hewitt. Shannon Elizabeth.
Okay.
Yeah, she's in it too.
Nice.
And that is like, so yeah, it's like basically a shot for shot remake. Like it's updated, but like those actors that are in that movie make no goddamn sense. Like it's like, why the fuck is Edward Furlong in this, and why is Shannon Elizabeth in this? The original holds up so well, sort of, but. And then, talking about another gem from like the 90s, there's a Night of the Demons 2 that came out in like 93, 94. That's it's not as good as the first one, but it's pretty damn good. But anyways, yeah, digressing here a little bit. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Furlong, like, he had a lot of promise, but you can kind of see it over the course of his career. If you like look at other movies he's been in, he's looking pretty rough.
Yeah, man.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. Yeah, and I guess he's also in Detroit Rock City. Adam Rifkin. I love.
Yep.
I'm sort of a fan of Kiss, or early Kiss and stuff. But so yeah, that was a dope film. Any case, recommendations. Woo! I'll start this off now. So my first choice is gonna be a bit long-winded, maybe, I don't know, but
Go for it.
so Michael Haneke, the famous director Michael Haneke. Funny Games. He made a film called Benny's Video, and this film came out in I think the 90s as well, and it is kind of a commentary on violent media and the youth culture or youth, and this is extremely dark, but it doesn't. It's not going to have that catharsis, I would say, like in this film where you're going to get that POV thing or getting multiple scenes of people getting murdered. It's just one sequence and then just sort of like the aftermath of it. And I think it's, again, if you're not into that, I don't know, it's just for me, it was like one of the most unsettling things because it's also like these upper class people and how they're able to kind of maneuver around a violent situation like that. But it's, I highly recommend that if you're into a 90s film that's about sort of like violent media, about youth and kind of the commentary on that. It's just to where this one is more serious, is Benny's Video, and I think I think a lot of people should watch it more and maybe kind of see. Yeah, so that's my first one. You can go if you have other ones. I have a few more, but yeah.
Honestly, I don't know what to recommend with this. I got nothing.
All right,
So
all right. Yeah. So
it's all you, man.
all right, the other one was Existence by David Cronenberg. This is another kind of like a immersive type of video game plot. The David Cronenberg
Yeah,
Existence.
I remember that movie.
Yeah.
Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah, so I partially remember it, but it's one of those things where it's like that immersive thing. So there's that. David Fincher's The Game, which not necessarily immersive video game, but it has that, like, this person. I don't know. I was just like, oh, maybe that might be another one, but I don't know if you've seen it recently. Maybe that might be a completely wrong choice, but
I don't think I've ever seen it actually.
yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it just gets to that kind of paranoia of just like, dude, is this part of the game, or am I dealing with like real life people? Just that type of like madness and things like that. So that, and the last one was Maniac, the 2012 remake by Frank Calfone. It is primarily a POV shot film. Stars Elijah Wood. I really I really recommend this because if you really enjoyed that POV sequence in this film, Brainscan, I highly recommend you watch Maniac. It's pretty much the whole film is like that. You get this POV kind of experience, and it is extremely dark. It is not for the faint of heart. And again, if you're wanting to delve into that POV thing, Maniac is there. It's on Shudder, I think, still. So if you're into that, Dustin, I think you said you dug that first kill sequence. So
yeah,
if you want an hour plus long experience of that, you should watch a Maniac. You're gonna be.
If I've seen that, yeah.
Oh, you did see the 2012. Okay.
Yeah.
What was? Did you see the original? I hear a lot of people.
See, that was the thing is I saw the original and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but I've rewatched it a couple of times since then, and I'm like, all right, this isn't so bad. It's still creepy as fuck, especially that whole ending sequence. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was more so the feeling, like. Maybe it doesn't. There's some things that didn't make sense, like in a logistic way or whatever. Like, how is he able to keep on getting away? But it was just that the feeling, like, this is a maniac. Like the title of it is like I don't know. For me, it's like it was perfect in that sense. And when I go to a movie, I'm assuming it's supposed to be unsettling. I want to be unsettled, and it did that in a, and also in a fantastic, like, in a technical side. I was watching interviews of how how difficult it was to kind of do that type of POV thing and trying to make it to where the camera's not shown on those mirror sequences. But anyways, I'm going too deep in it. But yeah, so
so that makes sense. And actually, now that you're talking about like those kind of movies, I thought of one that I always recommend to people if you want POV and you want like purely unsettling. Watch Enter the Void. That movie will fucking ruin you. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I need to see that, man. Would you?
Oh, dude.
Is it? I mean, would you call it a horror film in a sense or no?
No.
Okay.
Well, yes. No, in a traditional sense, it's definitely not a horror film. It's not a thriller, but it is a deeply unsettling movie. 100%. Like it's rough.
I kind of want to do an episode because my thing now, because I personally don't really. There's certain films I don't consider horror, but like I don't know. I have a certain criteria, but I'm kind of in this podcast thing. I'm just trying to be more. I'm kind of more into going about in the kind of like the standard thing. Like they'll consider Psycho and stuff horror, and like again maybe you do that too, but it's like But the thing was, I don't know. I was like, maybe we should do Enter the Void since you really like it. And I seen like maybe the first 10 minutes because I remember it was like the whole DMT thing and him getting shot, right? And so.
And that movie's like purely from POV, and then after that you're like you're in an out of body experience, and then you keep going back to the POV, and it's unsettling, man. Like everything from the music to the scenes and what the movie's about, like.
Is it about death? Is the primary theme?
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah, it's about death and reincarnation, and
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I know I think if you're down, I would like to do if we can do an episode on that next, unless you want some time before we
I'm
get into that.
down.
Okay,
I'll do it. I'll
okay,
do
all
it.
right. Yeah, again, if you don't want to label it as horror, that's fine. I have to
No, no, that's totally
I have
cool.
to
Yeah.
fully watch it. I still think it probably still is genre film, sort of like a supernatural type of thing, because who knows
Yeah.
what happens after death. But what I want to get at was, um, I was listening to a podcast and it was this guy named Shane Moss, and he's
Yeah.
a big dude into like psychedelics, but he's more scientific about everything. But he
Mhm.
had a recent recording with a comedian named Pete Holmes, and he mentioned how he actually almost died on like a overdosing on opioids, I believe. And what happened was he was starting to have this DMT like experience, and he was questioning himself like, why am I feeling like I'm on DMT? I didn't even take any. And then he kind of made the connection to where, oh yeah, that kind of the studies or whatever that state that your brain releases DMT or whatever when you're about to die is what he
Yeah.
was actually experiencing. So he actually nearly died, and he he was just telling Pete Holmes and his Pete Holmes's fiance or whatever that, yeah, he's pretty sure that's what's really going to happen for most people, is when we're getting that near death experience, our brain is going to release that DMT thing. And I kind of I'm always like kind of if wishy-washy on that type of stuff, but from someone like Shane Moss, who's like highly critical of like the hippie type of the spirituality, I feel like that's probably something that's probably going to happen to everyone.
Yeah. Let me tell you this too. I guess I don't really mind admitting this on a podcast. I've watched Enter the Void more times on acid than I have not on acid. But the movie has two different fucking feelings, and it's made for those kind of psychedelic experiences. Gaspar Noé has even said that himself. His new movie that's about to come out or is being made is kind of along those same lines about like psychedelic trips and stuff. He's very very into those and like what they mean to people. And so yeah, I've seen it under the influence a lot of times. It's yeah, all right, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I'm gonna watch it not on something, which is hard because that movie's still intense either way. But yeah, I'm probably gonna have a lot of notes. It's a 2.5 or 3 hour movie. I think it's long.
Well, hey, actually, what we can do here, because he'd made a film called Irreversible, which I've still yet to see,
Yep.
and that's considered a horror. Which, again, yeah. So I'll what we can do is do Enter the Void and maybe do a thing on his filmography if you're able to see all his other films. I know I think Love and is on Netflix and Irreversible is on Shudder, but maybe I think Enter the Void should be a standalone, but maybe do like a two-parter on his filmography.
Yeah,
if
I've seen all his movies, so
Okay.
we can do it.
Are they all pretty intense, or?
They are all very intense. Yes.
Yeah, so we can do kind of
Yes.
do our personal ranking. Again, definitely I want to go in depth with Enter the Void, since it's, I'm assuming, very significant to you, and it may
Yeah.
be for me just because I may or may not have. Um, um, what have you watched recently?
Ooh,
Since the last recording?
nothing much to be honest, man. I've been working a lot. I think the only movie that I watched was fuck, what did I watch? See, I can't even remember, so it must not have been that great. Oh no. I watched P Wacket. That was pretty good actually. It's kind of about this girl who's like a metalhead and she's like super into witchcraft and everybody thinks that she's bullshitting. And then it turns out like she's not bullshitting. She actually summons something, and she summons it to like kill her mom because she hates her mom. And yeah, it was pretty good. I liked it. The movie festival that was here that I was gonna try to go to, they showed it one night and I didn't get to see it, but then I saw it was up on a streaming site, so I watched it there.
Oh, okay. All right. So all right. Was that it then? Oh, was there any like genre news or genre film news that maybe is of interest to you or anything like that? Or any movie crib podcasts or episodes or Shockwave episodes you recommend since you've last been on?
I'm glad that Mick Garris's podcast has finally come
Oh
back.
yes.
Now that like whatever happened with that whole thing with his network that he was on, I'm glad it got worked out and he had his podcast back, and it's more under his control, it seems like, which is awesome. So that's been really cool. He had a really good conversation with the guy who did High Tension. I really liked that episode.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I don't know, genre stuff. I there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of stuff that's like gonna be out this year that I'm really super stoked on, as far as I can tell. I don't know. I have a hard time keeping up with it too, so that's the other problem. Sometimes something will come out and be like, "Oh shit, I should probably go see that." I'm glad Halloween's done. I guess that's gonna be out soon. This year, yeah, it'll be out this year.
Yep. All right.
So I'm stoked for that.
All right. Well, I'll do a quick rundown. Seen a lot of films. Seen Quiet Place finally, or I saw that in
Nice.
theaters. I loved it. I actually teared up a bit. I lost a father, so they have a thing with that too. So there's that. And I Love Dogs, Wes Anderson. That's not genre, but animation. That was okay. Dude next to me fell asleep. I sat next to like this chick and this dude just like fucking conked out. Was
Yeah.
into a Michael Haneke grind here. So again, I watched Benny's video. Watched the original Funny Games. Both I
Nice.
highly recommend. Seventh Continent, I highly recommend. It's just like this kind of decline of a family and middle class family, I should say. It's an 80s movie. It's just, I guess, a slow, quote unquote, slow burn. I call it contemplative cinema. It's a term that other people call it. I think that's more appropriate than slow burn. Just because I think films that kind of are longer running times kind of want people to kind of contemplate on the situation. A Myrrh, the people that did Strange Color of Your Body's Tears. Do you know Helen Katat? All those. Do you know that film? Strange Color.
I've heard of that film,
Okay.
but I have not watched it.
It's like a Giallo, homage to Giallo's. Amir's their first feature length film. I got the Blu-ray of it through eBay. Shout
Nice.
out to eBay. Awesome film. River's Edge, Dennis Hopper, bro. That was insane.
River's Edge is so great.
It's over the top. Crispin Glover is over the top, but I loved it.
Yep.
It was like this 30s propaganda-ish film, but made in the 80s. I felt like.
Yeah.
Dennis Hopper, dude, he's an icon to me. Dude, always rest in peace. You Were Never Really Here, Lynn Ramsey. I don't know if you've seen We Need to Talk About Kevin. Have you seen that film or no?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely seen.
Okay.
Wait, is that the one with Joaquin Phoenix?
Yeah, this new one's You Were Never Really Here. That's the new one.
Ah,
So.
man, see, I don't like Joaquin Phoenix anymore, so I have a hard time watching his movies.
Oh, has he done something?
And I don't know what it is why I don't like him.
Okay.
It's just like I don't care for his movies anymore. I think the last one I saw was The Master, and I was like, if this wasn't a Paul Thomas Anderson movie, I wouldn't watch it. But it was, so it was just like, fuck. And it was about Scientology, so I thought that was cool. But yeah, I don't know. I can't get into his movies anymore. I don't know why. Oh, I'm sure I'll get over it eventually, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you're into the Lynn Ramsey's aesthetic, it's definitely a lot of like not non-linear narrative and emphasis more on just kind of the compositions, the visuals, and the audio rather than the expositions. And I still recommend it. That the thing that was a plus to me was that the antagonists were politicians and the New York cops. Again, shout out to all the positive law enforcement people, but obviously, when we're doing this day and age with crooked cops and everything like that, or judges, and they're able to get away with things like that, I think it's very important, especially in the art scene, to kind of make those antagonists those types of people. So You Were Never Really Here has that emphasis, and also how it's not going to be the white male or just male savior type of thing. There's it's a different thing to where who actually kind of overcomes the oppressor. So highly recommend You Were Never Really Here. Saw Come Drink With Me. I think I saw Enter the 36 Chambers. Shout out to Wu-Tang. Alamo Draft House. I know I'm spitting. I'm trying to make these really quick here. Gemini. It's a neo-noir LA film by Aaron Katz. I think it has the OST of the year. It came out in 2017, but it's like a chill hop type of thing. So it's pretty laid back if you're into laid back type of beats. Deep Red, Argento. Saw it on Awesome Film Society. Shout out to Richard Linklater. Shout out to Awesome Film Society. Woo woo. 2 hour runtime. Have you seen Deep Red or?
No, I have not.
Okay, it should have been cut. There should have been like an hour and 30 minutes. But it looks fantastic. It was cool to be with a crowd of people and just to have that experience. And then Lawrence of Arabia, saw that yesterday at Alamo Drafthouse Ritz. Whew, 3 hour long, dude. That's intense. Racist, the brown face thing with that stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's considered one of the greatest films of all time by a lot of older critics. To me, I'm like, yeah, I can't call this that, but the cinematography, dude, it is wow. 70, and I saw it in 70 millimeter a showing of it, so I would still recommend it just for like a film history type of thing. But
Yeah.
right, any case,
Yeah, I'm jealous. You got like all the cool shit down there, man. The Alamo Drafthouse and Austin Film Society, man.
oh, dude, yeah. And thank you, Dustin. I cannot
Yeah.
wait to record with the Gaspar Noé filmography and Enter the Void. It's going to be lit.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to revisit a couple of those films, especially his early ones. But that's gonna put me in a dark place for a little bit.
Yeah, if you decide we shouldn't or anything, that's all good.
No,
Okay.
we're all good. We can do it. I can do it.
Thank you, Dustin,
Sorry.
man. And as always, listeners, be unsettled.